Let's check out some trade packages that Bleacher Report is proposing for a Brendan Donovan trade out of St. Louis, as well as a deep dive into Jeff Jones' projected opening day roster. There's some real surprises on there. We'll get right to that. Thank you for tuning in to the St. Louis Cardinals Daily podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher, and let's start out with some trades that Bleacher Report has come out with for Brendan Donovan, specifically Kerry Miller of Bleacher Report, to give them some credit. 3 possible trade packages for the Cardinals, and I can't say I like them all, and I can't say I see them being realistic. Some of them I would love, but I don't think the other side would do it. And of course, you guys let me know in the comment section what you think of them. The first trade package sends Brendan Donovan to a team that has been, quote, aggressively pursuing him and have been desperately trying to make improvements to their team because they went 81-81 last year. The San Francisco Giants are trying to get over the hump, trying to compete with the Diamondbacks, trying to compete with the Dodgers in that incredible division. The Rockies play there too. We let them play in the Major League Baseball still. They're a reason for relegation. We'll leave that aside. But shipping him to the Giants for Joshua Gonzalez, a player we've brought up before as a projected trade target. Just looking at the Giants prospects, trying to find a guy that makes sense to get him, Brendan Donovan, on the Giants, because the Giants farm system is not that great, and they're trying to compete, so they're not going to really trade much out of their opening day roster, their 26-man roster. So it's hard to find a match, and Joshua Gonzalez, I think, makes the most sense if we're going to make a deal with the Giants. I'd be fine with this. I wouldn't love it. I'm not going to be honest with you. You guys say I'm usually too positive. I'll come out and say I probably wouldn't like this trade package as much if we got Gonzalez. He is the 44th prospect in baseball. He's the number 2 prospect for the Giants. He plays shortstop, which is fine. Guys come up playing shortstop because they're athletic. They can play all over the infield. So I'm not worried about Mason Wynn being there in the future. What I am worried about is we'd be shipping off Brendan Donovan, who we know is a solid commodity, potential all-star, gold glove winner, solid bat, veteran for the room, for a 18-year-old who was the number 2 prospect internationally last year, right behind Roki Sasaki. And he played well in rookie ball. He had an 859 OPS, but this guy is not projected to debut until 2029. And so I'd be fine with it as a good prospect. He looks like he could be a great player, and sure, I'll get hyped about him if we make the deal. But, man, I can't get around to get rid of Donovan, who we could probably extend, and who would play well through his 30s. He's barely 30, or hasn't even turned 30 yet. He's right around there, and he'd be here for a few years. I think he's worth holding on to, and we have 2 years of control. I think this would be forcing a trade and not really getting max value for him. Not for a player who won't help us for the next 3 or 4 seasons. I'm just not sold on that, and there's not a clear avenue. I know he won't be shortstop, but, we have Weatherholt, who's going to probably be playing second or third. We have some other guys in our system. I just don't love that trade for the Cardinals if that's what were to happen. Oh, also in that trade, they have us sending over Lars Nootbaar on top of that. So I'd rather have Nootbaar and Donovan. I don't care for Joshua Gonzalez. At least not to that degree. I don't think it's egregious or awful that Kerry's insane, but just for what I'm looking at, I'd rather keep Brendan Donovan if that's the case. The second trade package that's proposed, I would like a lot, but I don't see the other team doing it. The Seattle Mariners would then send left-handed pitcher Cade Anderson to the Cardinals for Donovan and JoJo Romero. Cade Anderson is one of the best pitching prospects in all of baseball. He's a number 3 pick in last year's draft, led LSU to a championship run, one of the best teams in college baseball, and he was the most outstanding player in their College Baseball World Series. He struck out 180 guys in 119 innings pitched. He really hasn't played in the minors yet, so we haven't seen any of those statistics to report back, but he's a college guy. Stayed there, played his sophomore year where he broke out. So he's more like Liam Doyle, where we will see him up for sure in 2027, helping a team compete, at least in some way. And he's the number 2 prospect for the Mariners, and he's number 21 overall in baseball. So we're jumping from the Giants trade package where we would get in return a shortstop we won't see for a long time for a much better starting pitcher the Cardinals desperately need. I mean, that would fit our timeline perfectly. He's got incredible stuff. People project him to be a potential ace. Again, he's a lot like Liam Doyle in his overall projections. He doesn't quite have Doyle's fastball, although he has a great pitch mix in himself. This is a slam dunk. If the Mariners were to offer us this trade package, we would take it 10 times out of 10, even giving up Romero with it. Romero, I don't see us extending him. He's not old, but older-ish. He's not young. He's a relief pitcher, and those guys are super volatile. I wouldn't want to hang on to Romero for too long. I'd be afraid of him having a down or injured season, and then all of a sudden, he's not worth anything. So throwing in Romero, I could care less. We're not going to win this year with him anyway. Romero's a great pitcher. I'd be more than willing to package him with Donovan to get a guy like Cade Anderson. I just cannot imagine the Mariners wanting to give up a guy like him, especially because they have several other pitching prospects right behind him who they could probably get rid of instead. Again, that's a big leap all the way up to Cade Anderson. That being said, the Mariners are kind of desperate for trying to land a second baseman. They're down Jorge Polanco. It doesn't sound like Eugenio Suarez is coming back there to lose another infielder. So I don't think there's a 0% chance this could happen. I just really don't see the Mariners forking over one of the best pitching prospects in baseball for a guy who I love, but is a borderline all-star. Anderson projects to be a front of the end of the rotation pitcher. I just don't see that happening. Another trade package I think would be reasonable for the Cardinals, but I think I lean keeping Donovan just because I don't think I love the prospect that much, but I like the concept. This would be with the Los Angeles Dodgers, which I guess full stop, I would hate that. I don't want to give the Dodgers anything that helped them win any sort of World Series. Makes me throw up even thinking about it. I just want them to suffer. Sorry, LA. We St. Louis fans hated the Dodgers before everyone else hated the Dodgers. We did it before it was cool. But maybe we could make another trade with them. We already did it with Tommy Edman. Let's send him another utility guy for outfield prospect Zahir Hope, who is one of their better prospects and one of the better prospects in all of baseball. Outfielder, and he's played pretty well in the minor leagues so far. He was a late round draft pick for the LA Dodgers quite a few years ago and has ascended up the prospect ranks, and I think would fit the Cardinals pretty well. I know we don't necessarily need a ton. We could use some outfielders. He is another lefty, unfortunately, so I think he would fit in that regard to be an outfielder, have a spot open for him. He's already the 27th best prospect in baseball, and we would see him debuting the next couple of years, so I think it makes sense in that regard. He's an incredible athlete. They say he's built like an NFL running back, very dense, very, very quick and athletic. He had an 804 OPS last year in the minors with 42 extra base hits and paired that with 27 stolen bases. So I couldn't be upset about it. I think it's definitely a guy I could come around on, but he doesn't knock my socks off. I wouldn't say, oh, he absolutely won that trade, slam dunk. This doesn't sound like a blow you away offer we were talking about. This would be straight up according to Kerry Miller. So I don't know. He was a former Cub, so I'd love to see him come to the Cardinals and be really good. We've seen former Cubs come to the Cardinals and be awesome for us, but you guys let me know. Who would you like to see most out of those three trade packages? I, again, heavily lead Cade Anderson. Do you think any of those are reasonable, I guess you would say? Which ones would upset you? Which ones would excite you? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Y'all know ball. Next thing I want to dive into is Jeff Jones of the Belleville News Democrat came out as he's one of the Cardinals' biggest insiders, so he came out with his projected opening day roster, and this means a lot to me to hear his opinion on this sort of thing, because the Cardinals, even though we aren't competing this year, because we aren't competing, our team isn't great. There's a lot of fringe roster spots that are up for grabs, and I'm curious where he goes with it, and that very much begins with the starting rotation. He projects us to have 6 starting pitchers to start the year. Those guys would be Richard Fitz, Kyle Leahy, Matthew Liberatore, Dustin May, Michael McGreevy, and Andre Palante. He doesn't really list those in any particular order. I think that's alphabetical, actually. So that's not saying Fitz is going to be our one or anything like that. But he projects maybe a 6-man rotation to start overall, but more than likely one of those 6 guys may even end up just in the bullpen, which makes sense. It's common. You keep your swing guy around, especially young guys like Fitz would make sense for a swing guy. Well, what happens if Leahy maybe doesn't have a good spring? He could certainly end up being the swing guy. Palante, we've seen be that for us already if he does not if he has a repeat of what he was in the regular season last year. That would mean he thinks that the Leahy, Fitz, and Palante are going to battle for that into the rotation spot, which I've talked about already, I think would make the most sense. And he projects Hunter Dobbins to likely start on the IL. We just haven't gotten many updates. I imagine in 2 weeks we will know a lot more about if Hunter Dobbins is an option. But as of right now, Jones wanted to get an early roster prediction out there. He projects Dobbins to start in the IL. That honestly just makes the exercise easier at that rate, so I can't blame him. So let me know what you guys think about a potential 6-man rotation and who you think makes the rotation. Obviously, Liberatore, May, McGreevy as incumbents are going to make it for sure. So that leaves Leahy. Liberatore, May, and McGreevy are the incumbents, so that leaves Leahy, Fitz, and Palante to battle out for the rest of the spots. Let me know who you guys want to see at the back end of the rotation. Our bullpen for next year, he at least projects as Scott Blewett, who we just recently signed this offseason. Justin Brule, same, just signed him. He's out of options, so we kind of have to, if we're going to keep him, if he makes the roster, he's going to be on the 26-man roster. Riley O'Brien, back to close. Matt Pichard, who we got in the Rule 5 draft, again, if we don't put him on our opening day roster, we have to give him back to the Marlins, or at least offer him up. They'll take him back for real cheap. So it makes sense that he would be making the opening day roster. Of course, Jojo Romero, if he's not traded. Ryan Steinek, who we just signed, and Matt Swanson back. This bullpen actually isn't awful. If we keep Jojo Romero, based on last year's stats, all of O'Brien, Romero, and Swanson had a ERA right around or below 2. Which is phenomenal to have 3 guys that are able to do that. You bring in a couple new faces. Maybe some young guys come in with some spice later on, but that's a fine bullpen. I don't think the bullpen won't be the weakness of our pitchers. He does project Ryan Fernandez, Gordon Graceffo, Andre Granillo, and Chris Roycroft to start in the minors at that rate. Probably see a guy like Graceffo will probably come up very quickly. I think he has just one option remaining, so you let one of those other guys like Brule or Pichard earn their way out before slotting in, or maybe Romero goes and you bring up Gordon Graceffo anyway. Curious to see what they do. There's only 2 lefties, Brule and Romero, and we might trade Romero. I'm curious to see what they do with that. You guys let me know what you think of that bullpen. Catchers, he projects us to carry 3, which we've done before, but it's going to put a lot of restraints on the team if this is what we actually do. Of course, Pedro Pajes and Ivan Herrera will be a catcher and catcher, maybe. We don't know. His ability to play catcher is going to mean a lot for the team. If Herrera can actually play catcher and we feel solid, we probably won't carry 3. We'll just carry Pajes and Herrera. But assuming Herrera we don't feel confident, he'll probably start out as a catcher. It's worth trying. But you can't feel super confident if he hardly played last year and we're unsure if he's actually competent behind the plate. So that's why he projects, Jeff Jones does, to have Jimmy Crooks sitting there to be a catcher. And Alec Burleson, Brendan Donovan, Nolan Gorman, Thomas Sajaci, J.J. Weatherholt, and Mason Wynn rounding out the infield, which means the odd man out is Jose Fermin, according to Jeff Jones. Again, carrying that third catcher really puts a strain on depth outside of the catcher position. So he thinks Fermin is the guy who will probably get the boot out. I think I disagree with this. Fermin has more versatility out in the outfield and has shown a little bit of excitement more than even Thomas Sajaci, although I'd be fine with Sajaci staying up, and they've talked about potentially Sajaci getting some work in the outfield. So really Fermin and Sajaci is probably the biggest competition for making the big league roster. All of that assuming that Brendan Donovan actually stays on our team. Jones mentions that he projects Donovan to probably play mostly second base and some outfield so that J.J. Weatherholt can bounce around between primarily being our third baseman and maybe some second base, allowing Gorman to play some third base as well as DH, and Thomas Sajaci being our platoon guy to play around. Alec Burleson, of course, at first. Mason Wynn at short. Those are the only 2 guys I feel confident putting in pen will be at certain positions next year. I'm pretty confident we'll have Weatherholt at third and Donovan at second at this point. It feels like Donovan's staying, but I certainly can't put that in permanent marker anywhere. Outfield will then be Victor Scott II, Jordan Walker, Nathan Church, and he has Nelson Velasquez making the big league roster there on opening day, being the 4th outfielder, which I would love to see. Hopefully that he mostly says that because he's a right-handed bat with some pop, which is desperately what we need. It makes a lot of sense. You'll notice I didn't say Lars Nootbaar. He projects due to his double heel surgery for him to start in the IL, at least initially. Again, we'll get way more information on that in the next coming weeks because we are just under 2 weeks away from pitchers and catchers reporting. We'll get more info to you guys as it comes out. Thank you for tuning in again to the St. Louis Cardinals Daily Podcast. Subscribe if you guys like hearing what you're hearing. I really appreciate you guys being active in the comments. You already see me in there with you guys, and I appreciate what you have to say. Y'all are great. Baseball heaven, greatest fans in baseball. Appreciate you listening.